Yeah, man. I always start the pod with like who you are to me. Like you and I've gotten to know you over the last few years.
Yeah.
And like one of the things I've like always appreciated about you is like you used to have this like childlike curiosity. Like you have such a you like have a gravitational pull towards you. People want to be around you. You're like naturally like super fun dude. But you have this like you just kind of move at your own pace, at your own speed. It feels like you kind of like bend life around kind of what you want, which is like, and you just navigate it so effortlessly. And I think it's like really admirable. You've obviously done it in the fight game. You've done it now in the business world, in your personal life. It's like, it's cool to see.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And that's a cool perspective. I've never really been described as that. I mean, I can see actually Tommy, who I was just talking about, who's been one of my best friends since the early 90s, actually. I've known him, but he said there's a song, a country song, and it was basically talking about just doing whatever you want, and that's always been kind of my goal, along with hard work and just self-belief, but trying to create freedom to be able to keep that attitude. I always say that, you know, I've had the same lifestyle since I was a kid. It's like, do your homework, play sports, hang out with your friends. That's, you know.
And you just brought that in the adult world.
I'm trying to continue that until I die. If I can do that, like keep that kid mentality. It's funny that you put that like that because that's actually my goal. Like people used to ask, what's your motivation for, how do you stay motivated over, 18-year career or whatever? And I'm like, freedom to do what I want, hang around the people I want, like that kind of thing. And
what is freedom to you? What is that like?
Well, obviously it's not doing everything that you want all the time, but it's grossly spending your time doing things that you want, that you're passionate about, and being around people that you like. And of course you have to do some of the crappy stuff with the stuff that you want in mind. But the freedom to spend my time how I want it. I mean, shoot, we only have so much time on this planet, and to spend, depending on what your beliefs are, in the aftermath, like, this present body and mind and life is one of a kind. So just trying to spend the least amount of time possible doing stuff I don't want to do. That for me is freedom. And especially now having kids, like that's even a bigger focus,
You've definitely built a life like that. I mean, it seems like you do business with people you enjoy being around.
Yeah.
You've built Team Alpha Male, which is basically a community spot for your friends and people to get after it, do their homework, and come and train. So it's like you built this world where you're just, people come to you.
Yeah.
And you're kind of this hub for shit going down.
Yeah, and you know what's cool, and this is, how you just described to me what is admirable on this side, but for you, and this is part of what I've talked about, creating your own Who's Who network. I talk about that in my book. I wrote it in 2011. It's creating your Who's Who network. It's like now you're a sought after businessman with a business that's booming and it's cutting edge and it's cool. But when we first met, it was in Tommy in Candy's living room. Who Candy's a high school friend of yours. Tommy's a high school friend of mine. They're two peas in a pod, got married, and they're like my married couple. They help me with like everything in my life. They're like literally my right and left hand. And you had personal credit with Candy. I had personal credit on the Tommy side, and we came together when you were doing your first capital floats, which was initially about an investment from me, and unfortunately I wasn't able at the time to fork over cash, but we created a relationship between the team, sponsorship, and had a relationship there, and built camaraderie when you were just getting going. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, Ryan Dewey? Yeah, I know Ryan Dewey. But that's how my team's been built. It's been like, Chad Mendez and Joseph Benavidez and TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt and Danny Castillo and Paige Van Zandt and like Mark Munoz and all these names that are bigwig. Well, we helped get each other there. It's like building a Who's Who network, not going to meet people because they are, seeing potential in people, having like-mindedness, and really building a network of powerhouse people that helped each other get there, really, like.
What do you look for in those? You've done an incredible job of building relationships. Like what are when you meet someone, what are key things that you're looking for in that person of their characteristics?
Oh man, I've got caught with my pants down on this because it used to be, just like I find a way to fit everybody in. But at this point, it's been like innocent until proven guilty kind of deal. Like I, give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and then like who do you really mesh with on an energy level, on a like a day-to-day level. And I've had people that have completely different styles than I do and completely different business mentalities on different areas, but I still recognize some things in them that I really appreciate and identify with, like my buddy Scott James, who built BSN, sold it for a massive exit, 150 million plus exit. He's like a Jewish bodybuilder from New York, and I'm the California kid, and we did a clothing company together. And styles were way different, but I recognized the hustle, the positivity, the et cetera. And then a guy like you, I feel like we both kind of have like a hippie vibe. Like, I was born in my house with no immunizations, no real, conventional medicines. And my parents were just like fun-loving Christians at the time. And I'm kind of trying to carry on that carefree mentality. And I feel like you've got kind of a similar vibe of not worried about money, but following your passion. And, there's different reasons why you identify with different people. And then when you get the bad energy or the bad happening, then you take a hard knock and are able to separate and cut people out and take the lesson, not the experience.
Do you normally, when you get into a project with someone, like start off small, or do you sometimes like just trust that gut and go big on?
I go big, and I haven't really been burned because I'm not super. There's been a couple scenarios, one in particular where I made a bad judgment in putting somebody in charge of something that came to bite me later. But for the most part, when you're not too attached to like the monetary part, then it makes it easy to cut ties. Like I had a great partnership on a dentistry project with a very good friend of mine, and he had success in the field, and we talked about doing something together, and worked on it for a couple of years with other friends involved, and the business didn't per se, wasn't a massive success between us, but I enjoyed the 2 years that I got to spend time with him, and wasn't time bad spent. And now I've got free dentist appointments for my kids and everything else, even though we didn't take off on the business side. So trying to find the positivity in the things that don't work, and understanding that, you got to be bold enough to throw spaghetti on the wall and see if it sticks, and really chase the things that have feet.
So another thing I would really acknowledge about you is you like can move on so quickly. I've seen it in your fight career. Like when shit goes wrong, it's like you just recalibrate. It's like, okay, move on. Like you can wash things off. Has that from childhood? Like, have you been that way your whole life, or is there a pinnacle moment where you kind of shifted your mindset there?
That's a great question. I actually talked about this, I think, in my book. I have to go back and read. I'm planning on reading my book from 2011 and doing a second version now that I'm all salty and jaded, and see if I have the same ideas. You know what I mean? But two things. First off, in human development, that's what I studied in school. You learn there's environment and there's genetics, and there's definitely like a genetic component to positivity and demeanor and things. Somebody that's just like born with a smile all the time and they laugh at everything. Some of that's learned, but some of it's genetic. So I think it's a healthy combination of both. Like my dad is an extreme optimist. Like just you could, he's like a dog. You kick him, leave him outside in the rain, forget to feed him, but he's all excited to see you when you come home, kind of deal. On the other side, one thing that I can point to in particular was a season in college wrestling. I wrestled at UC Davis, and a season in college wrestling where it was my sophomore year, and I had lost, I think, 10 matches by 1 point or overtime. And I was training my butt off. I was doing all the right stuff, overtraining. Like
this is in a season or in
a season?
Got it.
I had lost 10 matches by 1 point or overtime. And then the next season, I had won probably a similar amount in by 1 point or overtime. and I just recognized the difference between how I felt, even if there was like a bad call. Like, say the referee screwed me on one, gave me a stalling point, or like locking hands, or something that happened, and I lost, versus if they gave it to me and it was wrong or right, either way, them saying that I won made my week so much better. Just them saying I won. Whether the opponent got screwed or I got screwed or it was the right call, whatnot, the attachment to the result and like them saying yes or no was such a pivotal part in like how I felt on the week. And I just took that in and was like, dude, I put in the same effort, outside. I put the same effort in the match. Sometimes I felt like I lost, but I actually won. And sometimes I felt like I won, but I actually lost. And the fact that they would say, raise the other person's hand or my hand, like affected me. And so I decided like to make my best effort to separate that at that point. So that was 20 plus years ago.
That's awesome. So,
yeah.
And what school, those were what years?
That was UC Davis. I was there from 99 to 2003.
Got it.
Yeah. And I was a coach there also. I when I started my MMA career, I stayed on as a assistant coach. That's a whole nother story. I was getting paid $7,000 a year as a full-time coach
For the wrestling team.
Yeah.
So this is 03, right?
Yeah.
03. Paint the picture of where MMA in the UFC is at that point in time.
So mixed martial arts is a pretty new sport. It's like probably the longest standing sport when you look at, or maybe the oldest way to figure out confrontations and acquire mates throughout time. But as far as an organized sport, it's fairly new. So in 2003, that's maybe 1994 is when the UFC was established. 2003, it was still illegal in California. So I was fighting, but it was on Indian reservations. So I literally had my first 8 fights on the Indian reservations because they got to make their own rules. And
that's crazy.
Yeah.
It was illegal in California.
It was illegal in a lot of states. There was a couple states that were legalizing it. They had taken it off of pay-per-view, I think, and it was kind of in the dark ages because there was like a bunch of lobbyists against it, like human cockfighting, etc. And it really took until 2005 when Lorenzo Fertitta and Frank Fertitta got convinced by Dana White to buy the struggling business of UFC, which was like kind of a freak show at the time. No weight classes. Like the organization was.
They were just doing the tournaments. It was still the UFC tournaments,
but it was like a big, huge, fat sumo fights the karate guy with the mullet and a gi on, and then a boxer with one glove and one hand just slap people. Like it was just kind of a freak show back then. And so Dana White convinces high school buddies Lorenzo Fertitta and Frank Fertitta to purchase the UFC for $2 million. I think $1 or $2 million, and they then went into big debt, legalizing it, applying rules, and I think they spent like $40 million before they did a last-ditch effort to put the UFC on Spike TV and The Ultimate Fighter, and that was a pivotal time where they saved the sport, got the notoriety. They put like hearts and personalities to these fighters. Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner were the 2 first finalists, and Diego Sanchez was one of the first-time finalists, and Kenny Florian, I think it was Diego versus Kenny Florian. They, with that single investment of paying to be on TV, saved the UFC, turned like a failed business attempt into success, and then I think there was news today that the WWE and the UFC are combining to become a $21 billion entity.
They're in a merger.
They're going to do a merge. And
hadn't heard that.
Ari Emanuel, who's the head honcho of William Morris Endeavor, who bought the UFC, is going to head it up along with Vince McMahon and Dana White on a seat behind him on the 2 fronts. So from a $2 million investment with 3 high school buddies to $21 billion conglomerate is pretty friggin' impressive, and that's where I was at the very beginning of it.
And you're one of the. Dana would sit here and be like, "You are a catalyst for that growth of UFC over that window of time."
I mean, I get credited for that. I mean, there's a lot of guys. Kid Yamamoto, rest in peace, is one of the guys that was a pioneer for the younger sports. BJ Penn, he fought 155, 170. He was a champ at both. Some iconic guys, Jens Pulver, Genki Sudo, like some of those first lighter weight fighters. But I get credited as the first lightweight superstar. My Hall of Fame induction in the UFC that's what they have on the thing, is first lightweight superstar.
Because when you started, so you're fighting on an Indian reservation. What organization was that with? Or was that just individual fights that were taking place?
No, it was called Gladiator Challenge.
Gladiator Challenge, and then there was King of the Cage. They were like partnered, and King of the Cage would have these low-end pay-per-views, probably getting like, maybe 1,000 pay-per-views, and then what would you get for a fight? Like, what would they pay you?
My first fight, I got paid $200 to show up, and then I got $200 to win, and then I had I got a percentage of my ticket sales, so I was getting like, I don't know, I think I made about $80 or $100 for selling a bunch of tickets, like 20 to 30 tickets to all my buddies. And so I had shoes on. The rules were a little different. You could knee guys on the head on the ground, and so yeah, that was it. And then it progressed to where I was making upwards of $2,000 for my ticket sales. I could sell like 200-300 tickets and get paid there. If I were to do a pay-per-view on King of the Cage, I would get $1,000 flat, which was, a lot better than a couple $100. And
what are you, young 20s at this time?
Yeah, 20, 23, 24. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I already graduated from college, and
what's your plan at this point? Is it like, I'm just going to keep doing this because I like it? Or is it like, I think this sport's going to figure its way out and there's a path forward for me?
I feel like I was always kind of a visionary when it came to that. I was like singing the praises of the sport. I thought it was going to be the biggest sport in the world. I was recruiting my buddies like Danny Castillo and Scotty Jorgensen, and a bunch of my guys that I knew were tough back in the day, and being like, dude, you guys got to do this. And I had Dustin Igbari, who still works for me, and he was my main training partner. He was in high school and home studies, an immigrant from Iran. I would teach him wrestling. He would teach me jiu-jitsu, and he was like 16 at the time. And then Joseph Morales, he was 9 years old. He still works for me as well, and has his own affiliation in El Dorado or in Elk Grove for BJJ. He was 9. He's fought in the UFC and is trying to get back in now. He's 28 now. And these guys were along with me at the very beginning of this thing. And I saw the vision. I remember basically I was working odd jobs in the summer teaching kids wrestling. I started my own business called TLC, Top Line Coaching, and I was coaching at summer camps at Tahoe, making $1,500 for a month and a half. And I remember I bought a Datsun B310 with like little triangle windows that rolled down in the back, and it had a cassette tape player. And I bought it for $300 up in Tahoe because my car was broken down. And I traded one of the kids for their cassette tape that plugged into a CD player, and I liked the CD that they had. So I traded all my coaching gear for that thing, and I had this CD that kept on playing. I think it might have been Jurassic 5 or something, where it was like, I'm going to be bigger than Jesus and bigger than wrestling, bigger than the Beatles and bigger than breast implants. I'm going to be the biggest thing to hit these little kids, bigger than guns and bigger than cigarettes. And I heard this kid playing that, and I was like, dude, what is that? So I remember driving in my $300 car. I had maybe 3 fights at the time on little Indian reservations, a couple $100, and I'm bumping down the road from Tahoe back home to Sacramento, playing this CD and just visualizing like blowing up in the sport, 2004, and just believing it was going to happen. And, that kind of delusional thought has got me a long way.
Where did that, it's wild. It's wild just even.
I mean, it's cool I was able to be at the beginning of a sport like that, like right place at the right time, kind of, wrong place at the right time, because the money was so crappy back then.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's crazy that you had the foresight. I mean, now you could sit back and you have the perspective, be like, oh, of course, the UFC is what it is. Like that was, I grew up playing soccer, so I had no like path towards professional when I was around the same time. MLS was infant.
Was it?
Very infant. It was 8 years old. It's a very similar trajectory. It's launched in 96.
That's crazy because soccer is the biggest sport on the planet.
So there was like international, but as an American, it was like, it's just no one, there was no pros that went and did that. Like, no one, I had no one to look to that had done that. So I had no visualization of like, to me, the glory was if you played college soccer. I'll go play college soccer, but that's the end of the roads there.
Yeah.
But for you to be like, no, I could see the sport's going to grow.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in sold out arenas fighting these. To me, that's just like a crazy, like, story of manifestation.
Yeah, it's delusional, really. To be on top of that, to add to the delusion, when I first started fighting, they had just taken out the lighter weight classes. So they went from having a 155-pound weight class, which was 2 weights above where I was at.
So you're not going up there.
So they took that away. So the lightest weight class was 170 pounds, and I was 135 pounds or 133 pounds in college, and I still was like, oh yeah, we're coming. Kind of like Ronda Rousey with the females, like she's accredited for being the female person. And I was like, one of the only guys that was full-time fighting at a time when, people were quickly falling off because they couldn't see the vision of the future. But I was, like I said, delusional.
Where did you get like the break where it went from King of the Cage to, was there a jump from that to WEC, or what was the journey between those two?
So this is another cool story that I've told quite a few times, I think. First off, there's all sorts of pieces to this puzzle. Jamal Yogas was my best friend in elementary school. He is a Buddhist author, surfer, who ran away from school to Hawaii, became a Buddhist for a long time, went to France, lived in a Buddhist monastery. He's written a bunch of books, including kids' books about surfing and his journey and everything else. And he was my best friend all growing up. We lived houses apart. And I went on to be fighting on Indian reservations, a prize fighter, opposite little journeys. But we both met up and we both wrote books around the same time. He had hit me up when he was out of his runaway Buddhist stage. He was in graduate school, and he wanted to write a paper on me and my little MMA journey where I'm on posters. And so he wrote an article, gets published in the New York Times, and that caught the eye of a guy named it'll come to me in a second. I haven't talked to him for a while, but he worked for MTV, and he came and pitched me a show called Say Uncle, is what he wanted to call it. And he wanted to call it Say Uncle, and it was basically where I go confront people's bullies, and then we get them to get in the cage and whatever. And that ended up being a show called Bully Beatdown. I pitched it to another promoter when I was trying to get my money up, and he went and ran with it and built the show. We pitched it to MTV, and it didn't get picked up. So that producer, Morgan Hertzen, that's his name, he ended up making his own company, and he pitched me on an idea called Warrior Nation that went on MSNBC, and I was the subject along with Gina Carano, who's now a famous movie star and a famous fighter. And we were both subjects in this show called Warrior Nation that went on MSNBC, was on like the beginning of like a worldwide audience where they followed my little rinky-dink career. So it was my best friend wrote an article. This guy who worked for MTV saw it, who we didn't get picked up. Idea gets knocked off. He starts his own company and does a Warrior Nation, which goes out to 50 million people and is an advertisement for me. I had, at the time, a bunch of small championships, Gladiator Challenge, King of the Cage, and WEC, which is just a small one casino operation. That gets bought by the UFC, and I'm the poster boy for it. So on the back of that Warrior Nation piece, the UFC takes over the WEC, which I was a champion of, and they start putting all sorts of money into my name. So another thing that happens is...
What year is this?
This is 2005 or 6, maybe.
Okay, so this is all within a few years out of college.
Maybe 2006.
Okay.
So so then there's something called the Outdoor Channel. They got bought and changed into Versus, And Versus went from, and the outdoor channel was like rowing and cycling, to now they had this fighting organization, and it was called Versus. And the fight organization was the #1 show, and I was the #1 fighter in there. And so on that Versus station, my fights are all the time just running. It was like me. I was like the poster boy. So it was like for free. If you had Versus, you're guaranteed to see my face like maybe 8 hours a day, because I was like, boom. So I'm like getting played by people that had this channel, and it was the main thing. So all these things fell into place off of my best friend Jamal's article that wrote. And so that ended up getting more and more clout on the WC. It was the same team as the UFC, same push behind it. And then eventually the UFC just decided, oh, let's just merge these two.
Bring it under the banner of the UFC.
Just let's end NWC. They did it with a pay-per-view with me and Jose Aldo, where they didn't call it WC. They just called it Aldo versus Faber. After that, they merged into the UFC, and me and Dominic Cruz fought for the first title when I was 31 years old under the UFC banner.
Got it. And that was in, what year was that?
Maybe 2011.
Got it.
So that was 2003 is when I started. I stayed, broke as a joke that whole time.
When did you get your first, what was your first, fuck, I made this?
So I didn't realize, if you look at me and Dominic Cruz, the first time we fought, neither of us, combed our hair. It looks like we just rolled off out of bed into fighting. It was before we realized the size of the audience and that people were going to be watching these fights for years to come, because it was kind of historic. He looks like, we look like Dumb and Dumber, really, with our haircuts. But I had won my first fight in the WEC and defended the title under the UFC banner. And Lorenzo Fertitta and Dana came back, and I think I was getting maybe 7-7, which is a lot of money for me at the time, 7,000 and 7,000. And so Dana and Lorenzo came back, and I think they gave me a $25,000 check. And I was like, what?
They just walked in and said,
walked in and said, hey kid, congratulations, boom, boom, here you go. $25,000 check. And I was like, to me, that was crazy. They didn't have to give it to me. So it was all of a sudden I made 7-7 plus 25, I'm making, $39,000, and went from broke to having at the time some real money.
Wow. I'm just curious, this is a more personal question. What was your hardest fight of your career?
I would say Jose Aldo.
Certain what? Is he as a fighter or a specific fight?
As a fighter and as a specific fight, it tied between that one and Mike Brown. The second time I fought Mike Brown. So Mike Brown was a world champion. He beat me the first time. The second time we fought was a real uphill battle. I broke my right hand in the first round on the top of his head, shattered one bone, snapped the other, and I dislocated my thumb in the third round. So I had no hands in a title fight with 5 rounds, 3 rounds with just no hands. So that was really difficult. The one against Jose Aldo, it was literally he was hitting me with a bat for 20 minutes on my leg. And if you look at Urijah Faber's leg on the internet, it's disgusting. It looks like a dead body. It got black and blue from my hip to my ankle, and was twice the size it should be. And I just was taking him over and over again. So as a fight and as a fighter, I would say Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo had a lot of the same attributes I had, but kind of at the time, especially my kryptonite, which was just nasty leg kicks, and he was just as fast, strong, and as explosive, because I was a gifted athlete. He was just as gifted, a little bit bigger, and he had a nasty stand-up game. And so I wasn't able to take him down, and he just piece by piece took my leg apart. And then Mike Brown, having to fight 5 rounds, severely handicapped, that was a tough one as well. That was more of a fight. Aldo is fight and opponent.
Aldo, he's still doing his thing, but
he went a 12-year stint before notorious Conor McGregor knocked him out.
And that, it's crazy how what that one fight did with Conor. But like before that, I mean, he was the guy.
Man. He was the pound for pound guy, in my opinion. Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah.
It's crazy. When did the infamous walkout song?
Oh yeah. So those that don't know, my walkout song, Tupac, California Love. It's the only one that shouts out Sacramento. That was a real motivation. Sacramento, where you at?
Yeah.
So like that, we got a little bit of love there. But that was my fight against Jens Pulver. The first time in Arco Arena, the first time selling out, the hometown crowd. The first time, I mean, I was fighting a legend. Jens Pulver was just inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was the first ever UFC champion. He was coming down and was undefeated at the weight class, 145 pounds. He had just submitted Cub Swanson, who's another, I think, Hall of Fame inductee for his fights. He just submitted him in like 45 seconds. And so it was the first time I came out with the cornrows with a crazy crowd. And they were just bumping, California Love, and Sacktown got a shout out. And it was a first big fight, in my opinion.
And that was under WEC at the time?
That was under WEC.
WEC, yeah. That was when I first started really following. And that was right when I started kind of recognizing
that's when we kind of put Sacramento
exactly.
on the map.
I was like, oh fuck, they're selling Arco's selling out, and obviously you were the poster child at that time.
Yeah.
When did? So I want to get in and have you share. I've heard it online. It's the infamous story, and I want to know when it fits into this whole window. When you went to Bali.
Oh yeah.
And you had. When was that? If everyone listening,
it was an ass whooping is what I had. I got an ass whooping by a bunch of foreigners.
Were you a professional? You were fighting at this time then?
Yeah, I think it was maybe 2005.
Okay, so you
had just fought Charlie Valencia. My whole timeline of my life after college, I can tell you what year it was by looking up what fight it was after, because I remember what fight it was after, and I'll have to go back and look at the year. But I think it was probably 2005. I just fought Charlie Valencia, who's another legend in the sport, for a world championship in King of the Cage in Arizona, and I went to Bali right after that.
Just for fun?
For fun, yeah. Me with Tommy Sherkamp and Virgil Moorhead, two of my wrestling buddies.
Got it.
We were out there. My parents had somehow been convinced to buy something out of there, and we'd just gotten. They shouldn't have done it. They lost all their money shortly after because they had, we were struggling. We opened a coffee shop, and they started to have some income and started buying properties right before the economy crashed. And they had purchased something in Bali. They only went there once. I only went there once, and now it's been basically stolen from us. And so we were out there to check out that property, and got in a fight in the club. Tommy had left because he was working as a surveyor at the time. He had left a day earlier. So it was me and Virgil. Virgil had gone home early because he was sober. He's been, I think, sober 11 years now, but he was on a sober stint at that time, and he didn't want to be around drinking, so he went home early. So I was out by myself with some girls I met and just dancing and stuff, and some guy starts a fight with me, and I'm like, bro, really? Shoved it off.
Did they know who you were?
No. No one knew. I was small time.
You were just a dude that they were like,
I was hanging out with some European girls, and I don't know why. Maybe I don't know what the deal was, but the guy kind of was starting a little fight. I shrugged it off, and I go, "What's up, dude? I'm not, as everyone knows now, I'm not afraid to fight. What's up, dude?" We walked outside, and there's a little memorial to the Australians that were killed during a bombing there, at the downtown district in Bali. And we got up on that thing and fought, and I beat the guy up pretty good. And his buddies came over and were like, "Hey, that's it." And the next thing you know, 3 guys came at me, one with brass knuckles. Another guy picked up a rock bottle. I basically hit one guy, ran in the club, got jumped by a bunch of guys. Ran out of the club onto the street, took off down the street, getting further and further from organization. And did you break bones during this? What was the injuries that were? The initial 3 guys that came after me after the first fight, One had a shoe hammer. Or no, one had a rock. I can't remember the shoe hammer was actually in the Billabong shop. The other one had brass knuckles. And I was saying one-on-one when I first fought the guy, hey guys, one-on-one. And they were kind of mocking me, saying one-on-one. The guy had brass knuckles. Apparently it was his friend who I beat up. And I'm like, what the fuck is that, dude? He had brass knuckles. And so another guy picks up the rock, and I grab him in his hands at the rock. And the guy with the brass knuckles was rabbit punching me on the top of the head. So I had like 7 different spots where I had to have sutures afterwards. And so they're chasing me down the street. And at the time, in Bali, they had a guy, instead of putting a door on the Bali shop, they had hired somebody to sit there. I guess it was cheaper to have somebody sit there and guard the door. So I just ran in the Bali shop, the Billabong shop, and he's like, no. I said, dude, get out of my way. And then the guys come in again. Now one has a shoe hammer. And shoe hammer is just a tiny little hammer they use to make shoes on the side of the road. And I like fake beg for my life, hit the guy and run back towards the club, get caught in the taxi. They start trying to jump me in there. Then the taxi driver gets out. I'm like, oh shit, I'm dead. They're like opening both sides. Someone's got my hair from the back, like hammer fisting me. And then I'm like kicking guys on the other side. He gets back in and we beeline out of there, go to the hospital.
Straight to the hospital?
Yeah, and everyone's wearing sandals there. The bill was $37. I had like 7 different spots sutured with thread, and I went to the police station with like a bunch of cotton balls on my head, and I'm sitting there. They had like a witness there that saw the whole thing, and he was cracking up because I was naked. They had me shower at the thing. I had just a towel around me. And I was exhausted because I've been up drinking, had the fight. It was now at like 5 or 7 a.m. And I've been up the whole time. And so I kept laying down in the police chief's office, like on his office desk. And the guy who's the witness, like, I can't believe you're laying on the police chief's like desk. I'm like, bro, I'm fucking tired, you know. And yeah, man, learned my lesson.
And then you were
walk away, dude. Walk away.
And then you just went back to the hotel, and Virgil probably sees you.
Yeah,
and was like, what
Virgil actually started crying. He's an emotional guy. He's like, "What happened?" He got all a little teared up. I was like, "Bro, you got jumped, man. It's bad."
Wow. Any other experiences like that?
Yeah, yeah. There's another good one. These are good fight stories.
Yeah, I want to hear about the fights outside of the cage.
So this one was. We were in San Diego. My buddy Paul Schoen and Reed Shelger, both college wrestlers, both jiu-jitsu players. Reed owns a gym in Texas now, holds his own fights. He's a black belt. Paul is a big business guy, a developer out of L.A., and he's a black belt. I took 2 pro fights, and we're all wrestlers at the time, and it was San Diego. They do this big kickball tournament every year. And like on a little island there, like walkable island. It's not a real island, but I forget what it's called. I think it's Island something is what it's called. And so we're walking back from a day there, and there's like 2 girls behind us, and their boyfriends are right behind them. We didn't know they were boyfriends or whatnot. And then about 20 feet in front of us, there's a lady with a huge swastika on her back, like soup to nuts, neck to tailbone, a swastika. And I think I was like, dang, dude, check that out. It wasn't like talking shit or anything, just like, check out that swastika. And I think Paul said something. Paul's Jewish Mexican, and Reed Shelger's father's side is Jewish also. And they're like, dude, that's fucking crazy that that's still going on right now, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And the girls behind say, hey, that's my boyfriend's mom. Shut the fuck up, or something like that. And Reed turns around and goes, oh, wow, real cool, something to be proud of, or something like that. And he was like, you better shut the fuck up. My boyfriend's going to whoop your fucking ass. And then, you know, Reed is a 197-pounder in college. Paul was a 175-pounder. I'm, at the time, current world champ, mixed martial arts. No one knows. And Reed just goes, oh, man, we're real scared about your dopey boyfriend. And so all of a sudden, fucking the boyfriend comes beelining. Like we keep walking, and she talks to her boyfriend. Boyfriend drops his shit, comes beelining for my buddy Reed, or my buddy Paul, and they start coming out from everywhere. There's like 8 of them.
What, are they like ready for this?
Yeah, well, I think just one went, and it was like their whole white supremacist group was there. You know, that was the dude was an adult. His mom looked like he could be her sister, but you know, she probably had him when she was like 12, and they just come at us. And so we like, you know, my 3 guys go on my buddy. We like roll out onto the sand. We're walking on the sidewalk right by the sand. Roll out on the sand, and my buddy Reed is a massive dude and a badass. And so there's like 6 of them that roll. Reed knocks out one, and then Paul knocks out the other one, and then they roll out, and there's 3 of my buddies here, Reed, Paul, and our other buddy, and then I somehow end up on the back side of these other 6 guys as we roll in the sand. And so they start coming like this, and I'm on the backside. So I just come from the side, and I knock one guy out, knock another guy out. So now there's 4 guys knocked out. And then Reed and the other 3 guys, so now it's like a even match. And one more guy gets knocked out, and then the other ones are like, we're out of here. So the whole scene ends with the 2 girlfriends shaking their boyfriends going, no. And me going, you know, scared. I'm like, dude, I'm going to get the car. So I take off running, and my guys are...
Because you probably had a lot to lose.
Yeah, I had a lot to lose at the time. And, you know, so that was a good experience. Reed Shelton. I'm telling you, Paul's balling right now, doing massive apartments and stuff in San Diego. I mean, in all throughout LA. And then Reed's running an awesome gym there, and he works like a pretty good executive job. But these guys just mess with the wrong guys, you know.
Jeez, sounds like I remember the show Power Rangers back in the day. Power Rangers would always fight those. They called them those other creatures that would come in. They'd always get their ass whooped. It'd be like 50 versus 4 or whatever, how many there were, and you guys just like picked them all off, taking them down.
That was a funny story, man. I was so nervous after that because it was after my Bali story, and I thought, you know, I've been through this before. I was like, there's no slow walking. That's why I tried to do it first. Like, okay, fight's over. They're like one by one making fun of me, and they jump me. Get into the club, they jump me again. Get out into Billabong shop, they jump me again. Get into the taxi, they jump me again. I'm like, you know,
how long
that's a
after?
Third world country.
That was in the same year almost?
No, that was probably 2 years later.
Wow. Any other times?
Dummy, huh? What am I doing?
Have you been jumped at any other times?
Yeah. A couple other times.
What do you think it is?
You want to hear more of it?
Oh, I'm just curious why you like.
Well,
is it because you're kind of like your happy-go-lucky attitude, and then but you're also casual?
Well, they're all different circumstances. Like the first one, it was me being an idiot in a third world country, just not like cowering. I should have cowered, to be honest. In retrospect, that's my advice: is like walk away. The second one, I was helping out my buddies that were getting jumped by a bunch of Nazis. Mm-hmm. The third one was before I started fighting. Actually, it was the first time I met Mark Munoz because he was running a camp. So this was before I'd actually started fighting, right when I first started to train at downtown. And again, it was me just not walking away from 3 guys that were talking shit. And I was like...
Here in Sacramento?
Yeah, here in Sacramento. I got jumped by like a gang of Asian dudes. I don't know. I think it's probably, they say like in human development, like the kids growing up, like in school, elementary school, the kids that are most social get in the most confrontations, whether it be arguments or fights, whatever. It's just you're interacting with other people. Then you add alcohol to it. Then you take a kid that's confident, and you have different people that play by a different set of rules. In somebody's neighborhood, you might be able to sit your face right in somebody else's face, touch noses, and be like, "I'll fuck you up, blah 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 blah." In some neighborhoods, you talk, one guy's talking, the other guy's gonna hit because they play by different rules. Like there's different rule sets. In another neighborhood, you don't talk shit at all, you'll get shot or stabbed. Like so, you put a mosh pit of all these people together, and
you don't know the cultural rules.
You don't know the culture. You don't know the rules. And I'm not a guy to be messed with. you wouldn't know that looking at me, but if someone's gonna pick on me, I'm gonna be like, bro, don't fucking, you're not picking on me, you know? Or and it's not something like I'm trying to set let him be known. It's just not in me. Like, bro, you're like, 3 of you guys are surrounding me. All right, like, you want to start fighting? Like the one in downtown Sac, some girl, we're in a crowded outdoor area, and some girl had said that I had grabbed her butt or something as I walked by, and I said, don't flatter yourself. I'm not interested in grabbing your butt. Like, you're not my type. Like, get over yourself, kind of deal. And then that girl was drunk, rallied up her friends, who later came and said, "Did you say something to my girl?" And I was like, "What? I don't even remember. You know." Like what you're talking about, and like you talking shit, you know, you talk shit to my girl. Or
yeah, it's moments that escalate.
Yeah,
something that's small, and you throw a
and
little
all of a sudden there's 3 guys in front of
there.
me, and the biggest one's talking, and I'm like, oh, the biggest one, who's gonna get hit in that scenario? 3 guys on one, I'm hitting the biggest one. Just being dumb, young and dumb and brave. That's it, I think.
Love it. I didn't even know these stories existed except the Bali one.
Yeah.
What you've been positive your whole career from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
When did you ever have moments where you were like, fuck, I don't know where this is going. Or maybe this isn't for me, or maybe I need to pivot in my life?
I actually did not. And I think and I always talk about this too, which is just a good lesson in general. I'm sure, I mean, me and you, when we were in Australia, we had a good discussion about your journey, because I didn't see, I remember I ran into you on the street in front of the gym. Remember you were driving and I was in the middle of the street. I was just got to eat Mexican restaurant. I'm like, hey, what's up? You stopped at the light and I was just standing in the middle of the street. I'm like, what have you been up to? I'm like, oh man, got this cold plunge doing. It's actually doing really well, blah, blah. And I asked you if you wanted to run a shop inside the gym.
Remember that.
And you're like, dude, I'm real busy with this cold plunge thing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and we talked about there. I didn't know the story about where you were living in an automobile for a while.
Yeah.
Where it was like, fuck, what do I do? And you're comfortable enough. It's like you spent all your money. You're like, had a bigger picture, bigger plan. You're not worried. You're just like doing what you had to do to survive with a bigger vision in play. It's the same thing for me. Like, I was always really, really enjoying the process, and I was always really good at separating the crappy stuff from the vision. And that's the key. And I hate hearing guys say, oh, what happened? I'm like, oh man, you're a great wrestler. Thought you were doing MMA. What happened? I got burnt out. Oh, you're a great wrestler. What happened in college? I thought you were going to, got burnt out. Like, burnt out is an excuse, in my opinion, or a change in thought. It's really like, what do you want? What are you envisioning? What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? And then there's the crappy stuff that you have to do to get there. And it may seem crappy to you, maybe it doesn't. For me, I lived below my means for, 7 to 10 years, even more than that. I didn't get my house in my ideal neighborhood until like way later. I used to drive my neighborhood for motivation in 2003 and 2004 and look at the houses and be like, I'm going to get a house here. Mm-hmm. And then I had a block of houses where I was having roommates up until Tommy and Virgil, who are both really successful guys right now, and Chad Mendez and TJ Dillashaw and Lance Palmer and all these different guys lived on my block of houses. And, now Matt Sanchez runs a multi-million-dollar company as a development, had, whatever. He lived on the block. Carlino, he runs a big multi-million-dollar company. Tommy runs a big multi-million-dollar company is a partner of mine on a bunch of my stuff. Chad Mendez fought for the world championship, has a successful business now. TJ Dillashaw was a world champion. Lance Palmer was a world champion. All these guys were, just on this little block of houses that all helping each other get there, you know what I mean? And for me, that was like kind of a cool time.
It's also, you bring up a great point. It's like, we are who we surround ourselves by. And it was clearly a group that was ambitious, that wanted to do great things, whether some of them had, most of them probably hadn't done that yet.
Yeah.
But you were surrounded by a group that's like wanting to elevate themselves.
Yeah.
And that, like, to me, that's like if you're setting out and you haven't gotten to where you want to go, or you feel distant from there, it's like get around the people that you think can go to, that have either been there or that are just going to rise up with you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that you hacked that literally by creating a block that you purchased the homes on.
Yeah.
And you're like, everyone move in here.
Yeah.
And we will all just become certified badasses in our craft, whether that's fighting, entrepreneurship, business ownership, whatever it was. And we're going to rise up together.
Yeah. Created a who's who network of people. Then we helped each other get there. And it wasn't even about that. It was just, I remember one time I came home because we all kind of shared all the houses. My first house, the pool was way better than the house because I've got money and I put a pool in, like a badass pool. My dad was building it, so I kept on making it, make it deeper, make it bigger, and everything else. So I had like a crappy little house with a badass pool, and that was the first house. And then I bought Tommy and Virgil bought the house next door to that, and then I bought another house with Tommy and Virgil. That was like the nicest house any of us had lived in before. It was still a humble little home, 1,800 square foot home. And then we had Matt Sanchez before that. He's a millionaire now, but at the time he couldn't afford a down payment. We bought the house next door to that, and I helped with his down payment, and he started his business out of the garage. And so we had like, kind of a unique way of just like kind of like rallying up together to create this environment that was awesome. So my house, I came home one time and somebody had put a video game in the living room. Someone had an Xbox or something like that, and I was like, bro, they're all sitting there, and I'm like, dude, out of here. If you want to have that at your house, go ahead. I don't want this at my house. I did not like seeing people sit all day on the video games and doing that kind of stuff. It was like literally like, and I love this story and chapter in my book that's like the sit, run, walk kind of scenario. It's like if I want to sit next to Ryan Dewey, the entrepreneur, the trendsetter in his space, and you're sitting here, we're talking, and I'm enjoying the conversation, I'm learning something, getting something out of it, and you get up and start walking. If I want to continue that conversation, I'm going to get up and I'm going to start walking with you. And if and if you start running and I want to continue the conversation, I need to start running with you. And if I want, you get in a car and you shut the door, I'm going to knock and be like, hey man, can I get in the car? I want to continue that conversation. We got to be on the same level if I want to continue that conversation. And I think I've been there with people where I'm like trying to match that energy, and I've been in that guy for a lot of people where they're trying to match my energy. And even now I have my entrepreneurial group, and I got a text today from Tyler Smith, who, by the way, is an amazing entrepreneur. You know Tyler? And if you know Tyler Smith, I need to introduce you guys anyways. But he sold his company SkySlope to Fidelity.
Oh, yeah. But he's been working with B and everything.
He's been working with Brandon, and he texted me today about Brandon. He goes, bro, we need to go bigger. He's the one that sent me the $21 billion thing at UFC this morning. He goes, check it out. He goes, we need to go bigger. We need to do more.
So he's your walk run right now?
Bro, yeah. He's like, I said, bro, let's do it. This is my plan. He goes, well, let's set a meeting. I'll be the guy to help you. I've got the funds. I go, blah, blah. And he goes, by the way, your boy Brandon, who I introduced him to, he's like, he's about to go real big, who's part of our relationship, Brandon Brodsky. He's about to do huge stuff. And Tyler's been mentoring Brandon, who's another guy in our environment that's like, just, we're going to be balling, all of us, B's
been that to me.
Yeah.
B was my first investor into a company I had. He's the first one that shook my hand and said, I'll write you a check. He has been the one where it's, I've wanted to walk and run with him.
Yeah. And now Tyler, through an intro through me, he's like, Brandon's like, bro, everybody's been saying I need to get with Tyler. He's like, can you introduce me to Tyler? I go, yeah, absolutely. I put him on. Then they're talking every day. It's funny, Tyler Smith, I just took our EO group we all went to Vegas, and I happened to text Dana because they were trying to figure out something to do, trying to get a speaker. And I hit up Dana. I go, Dana, I got all my Dana White, all my business guys are here. We're doing our retreat out here. Is there any way we can meet up with you and just get a little bit of your time? And he's like, bro, I just landed. The jet just landed. He goes, can you guys be here by 4 or whatever it was? I go, yeah. He goes, all right, cool. So we all go over there, meet up, and talk about Tyler getting stoked on what he saw from Dana. Dana gave us a bunch of insight on his business, on his Howlerhead business, the insight here, insight there, and it's just stoking the fire on a 38. I guess Tyler just turned 40, just stoking the fire on him, and Tyler's asking all these questions, and he wants to build out his health and wellness center, and he's going to go bigger on his house. And now Tyler and Dana are texting back and forth because the game recognized game. You know what I mean? And so these are all networks where we're building our Who's Who network. It's not because of what they've accomplished. It's because of the energy, the insight, the know-how. You attract that. And so that mentality has just been awesome.
Yeah, that's a skill. And then it's also knowing how to nurture those relationships. Do you
have any advice for people that are trying to nurture those relationships? I've got a little bit. I want to hear yours though.
I mean, to me, it's bring immense value, because usually, yes, you want a win-win relationship, but sometimes when you have, or if there's someone that I really want to be around, and get their time, it's. And I like how you say it. How do you walk or run with them? How do I show up and be value in their life that I get to be around them? And I think that's a big recognition. It's something, as I've grown, I get people that reach out and hey, can I take you to coffee, or can I do this? And it's flattering. And it's that's just not going to work. That rarely do I just have an afternoon where I can just go to coffee.
Yeah.
But when it's someone that says, hey, they find some place to bring value to my life.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do this for you, and I'm going to be there, and I'm not asking for anything. It's sure, come along, do this thing, or help me out this way. I've been able to, for me, what I've been a big hack is I do a lot of interviews, and people bring me on their podcast.
Right.
And that's a spot that a lot of people get access to talking. So what I mean by that is usually it's someone wanting something to start,
right, and
bring over the top value, as opposed to how can I get what I want from this person. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people are there. So I'd be curious to hear what.
Well, on your side, what you did to bring value, and it was more of just relationships on top, was, it was the initial ask for money on investment. And not that I didn't want to invest. Part of my secret to success is being cash poor throughout my career. And I can go into that. It's more about real estate and everything else. That's what's helped me grow. But you provided a free service, which is an important service of recovery for our team, and we posted about your business at the time, and that kept us in touch during that. And now it's grown into, I'm going to get my cold plunge today, and I'm pumped about it, and Jaslyn's pumped about it, and everything else. And you're helping me out. Maybe I'll be a little bit of help. You're doing pretty well on your own, but it's more about the relationship, right?
I think it's a good point. It's you want to. Sometimes it doesn't. What you went in for that relationship at that moment, the results, it's different. I pitched you on an investment. It didn't really work out at that time. But it was we became acquaintances. Then we became friends.
Right.
Then we got to know each other more. And it's I'm not fixated on
And hopefully we're going to do some business together.
Exactly. Yeah. It was fun. And so I think that's a big thing to a lot of people, you play a long game. How do you stay in correct form of communication?
Yeah.
How do you be kind to people? How do you...
And I really think I'm sure you know this too, but you're about to be one of the biggest ballers in our region, man, which is exciting because I know you're a humble guy, I know that as is, and Brodsky is, but you're going to be the guy that people are going to want to get mentored by, etc. So being on both sides of it means a lot. So one thing I want to say about my little hints is not being afraid about relationships. So many people want to keep their ties to themselves and not being tied to getting something out of an introduction. So many times, Matt Sanchez and Aaron Reeves, for example, both guys that I know through the wrestling world, both guys that I've done business with, Aaron Reeves, I did the dental business with, and
Yep.
it didn't work out for me on that front, but I learned a bunch and got a lot of great time with a great friend, and got some lasting things out of it for sure. Matt Sanchez, when he was going from his lawn maintenance business with Chris Carlino to being a developer, was looking for liquid cash, and I actually said to Sanchez and Aaron, I go, Sanchez, Aaron, you guys got to meet. Like, your energy's on point. You guys are going to be
Now they do business galore together.
Business galore together. And Brodsky, I made the same introduction. Like Brodsky, like it all kind of ties in. Brodsky and Aaron Reeves just went on a trip with you to the other side of the planet, to Australia, and where else did you guys go?
New Zealand.
To New Zealand. And it's just like building this network of like, I don't really care about what I get out of it. I'm connecting good people, and it'll all come back. Like, if I really wanted a hard pitch to all of you guys, I'm like, guys, I need this money and I believe in this thing, the likelihood of me getting it, if I really were to ask, is very, very high because of our relationships. You know what I mean? If you have it to give and you see the vision, you're like, I know Urijah. I've known him since the get-go. Absolutely. And that's a super powerful thing.
So giving
without worrying about what you get back.
Creation.
Yeah. And connecting.
Totally.
Connecting like-minded people. That's in itself. It's probably my biggest skill set, is just connecting people.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
You have been. Everyone always talks about. I mean, your Rolodex is impressive, but it's not just your Rolodex. Like, everyone can build a Rolodex. It's how you maintain that, how you manage that, and how you nurture that, and who you are to those people.
Well, I appreciate that.
And that has been that's been very clear. What do you envision for UFC? Where do you see the next 10 years of the sport going?
Man, I've always said it's going to be the biggest sport in the world. Soccer is the biggest sport in the world. I think the number one reason is the simplicity of it. You can have an open piece of dirt, an open field, a parking lot, a driveway, and you can play soccer. You can do something soccer related. So I really think the future is, and especially with the minds that are behind it and the passion that's behind it, it'll be the biggest sport in the world. I mean, David versus Goliath, wars have been settled with this sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, gladiator era, like the top entertainment in the world back in the day, like the Roman Empire was the gladiators. The way to settle land disputes, female disputes, confrontations, this is the sport, since the beginning of time.
What has to take place for that to happen? Obviously, everyone doesn't fight. I'm not a fighter.
Yeah.
It's not. Do I train a little on the side? Yes. So I think I have a connection to the sport there.
Yeah.
But, not a lot of people want to get into a cage.
Yeah.
What do you see as breaking that boundary?
Breaking the boundary, I mean, it's a risky business. So the risk versus reward needs to continue to rise. You talk about football, the risk is there, the reward is there. You talk about any of the contact sports, boxing, the risk is there, the reward is there. I think that needs to continue to go.
So right,
sure.
Pay raises,
which is
more
happening.
money in the sport. Yep,
more money in the sport. The other thing is, the more like-minded, aggressive, funded people that believe in it, the better. Another mentor of mine, someone I really consider a friend, I met in a taxi cab, maybe 14 years ago, is Mark Mastrov. He's the founder of 24 Hour Fitness and one of the minority owners of the Kings back in the day. He's the owner of the UFC gyms, but an amazing father. The things his kids are doing, it's unbelievable. Same with Lorenzo Fertitta. The kids his things are doing, incredible. He's a billionaire, but his kids are 100% his priority with Lorenzo. Mastrov, everything is about his kids and he loves his business. But I think the biggest thing is intelligent people that understand how awesome the sport is, focusing their time and energy on it. And those two guys in particular are guys that are classy, hardworking, have great morals, have their ducks in a row, and they believe in the sport. The more that happens, the more the right people believe in it, the better it's going to be for everybody. You know, Ari Emanuel, he's the most powerful agent on the planet. You know, he's all in. Now his main thing is going to be running UFC and WWE. That says a lot. When you get powerhouse people that are investing their time, that says a lot.
What, on a personal note for you, you've transitioned, you are retired now.
Yeah.
What is the biggest challenge in your life? What is the thing that you're kind of grappling with at life at this moment?
The thing I grapple the most with is how to spend my time. I mean, there's the no-brainer stuff, but having kids has helped out a lot with that. You know, they're my new passion, which is all about how do I get my time with them the best time possible. Like, how do I spend my time? And it's all going to be towards creating passive income or working in things that I can involve them in. And so for me, which I'm like a little bit, I get distracted easily, maybe ADHD, which I think came later in my life because of my sport and the contact and also having so much going on at one time, but really deciding where to focus my time and energy because I like something and I believe I can do it and I'll go after it. And I've had to weed out a bunch of things that are just not good time spent and really focus on the things that matter. So the biggest thing is deciding how I spend my time and really breaking myself from being a workaholic. That's a hard thing to do, and especially when you have relationships that need to be nurtured in my own house with Jaslyn and with my kids, which that's actually the easy part. I mean, I will put them first over anything, but finding more times where I don't have to worry about money so that I can spend time, you know, developing these humans.
Love it, man. Yeah. Do you have anything kind of last bit? I always like to say you could tell it to yourself, or if you're talking to an up-and-coming, 18-year-old that's looking to get started, you're talking to yourself at 18. What are you telling yourself at that time? What's a piece of wisdom?
Piece of wisdom is whatever you're going to do, it's going to be really hard. Just be prepared for that in life. You're going to have times where you feel defeated, that people are against you. There's times like, I would attribute it to like, a time like say you're in love and you've broken up with your high school girlfriend or something like that, and you can't sleep at night kind of feeling. You're going to have those kind of moments where you can't think of anything but the issue at hand, whether it be you're getting in trouble for something or the hard times are coming 1,000%. Just know that they will pass and you're going to have to deal with them no matter what. Like no matter what, you have to deal with them, and how you react is completely up to you. And how you bounce back is completely up to you. Until you're off the planet, until you're where you want to be, which you may never be where you want to be. Like if you're thinking big enough, you probably are not going to be exactly where you want to be, like the exact spot, depending on how ambitious you are. I would focus on being content, being happy, and knowing that it's going to be a very tough road to really accomplish big things, and to be okay if you don't want to accomplish big things. If you want to be, and I know a lot of people like this that are very comfortable with their means. Find a way to live a life that you're excited about life, because you only get one.
There it is. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for making the time, brother.
Yeah,
this was fun.
My pleasure.